Thank you for joining us now. Let's talk about some of these top business headline. We have our guest now, Gamale Otanimomo, a business analyst. He joins us virtually. Thank you for joining us and good morning to you.
Thank you for having me, Frank. Good morning, Lagos, Nigeria, or anywhere you're listening from. Thank you.
Well, maybe we should start from the second story, of course. How are you coping out there? Election has come and gone, although we still have the governorship election ahead of us. Looking at the cash crunch that is been biting, of course, before the presidential election. So talk to us, has the situation gotten better out there?
Candidly, no. Good morning once again, Frank. I went to the bank this morning to make a withdrawal, and then I was told candidly that I can't do more than 3,000 naira across the counter. For an economy that is adjudged to be the biggest in Africa, I foresee a contraction in GDP this quarter or next quarter. So the non-availability of cash is affecting the informal sector. Maybe on the other hand, it will drive financial growth and inclusion, but it has to be gradual and not this drastic the way we're doing it. So a lot of people are hurting business activities as it's low. Maybe perhaps after the gubernatorials, they will release the cash. I hope so, but it is not in the interest of a fragile economy like ours that is just recuperating after COVID. I do not think it's a good strategy.
Because this story talks about the fact that the Purchasing Managers Index report released by Stanbic IBTC has dropped below 50 points to 44.7%. So what is the implication of this? Because usually you have 50% point above.
Frank, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, so I said that's not nice. Cash now is king. So you use cash to buy cash. A friend of mine said he wanted to withdraw 10,000 from the POS, and they told him he was going to pay 3,000.
Yeah, Gamaliel, can you hear me? We lost connection with your audio, dear. Well, perhaps we can reconnect back to again, but I guess you were trying to talk about the fact that the POS perhaps are the real winners of this particular situation or crisis, charging as high as about 30%. That's quite high on a 10,000 naira. That's quite high. Can you hear me now? Are you there now? Hello, Gamaliel, can
you hear me?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Frank.
Yes, please go ahead. I can hear you. I mean, you were painting a picture of. Yes, I can hear you. You were painting a picture of, giving an example of how POS operators are charging as high as 30% over 10,000 naira, and I'm saying that's very exorbitant. Perhaps they are the real winners of this, crisis.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, please go ahead. I can hear you.
Not necessarily, because we are all victims of the system, and what you don't have you can't give. So they must have gotten the.
I think we're having connection issues with Gamale Otanimomo. Let's quickly take a break. We'll return back to him as soon as possible when we can have him again. We're back in a moment. This is Business Breakfast. Please stay with us. We have Gamale Otanimomo back again. So talk to us. We're trying to, finish that thought. But I was saying that perhaps there are winners in this situation that, the crisis this situation has created. For them charging about 3,000 over 10,000. That's 30% already of the demand or what is expected.
Yes. So in the absence of a system, there will be a chaos, and I do not blame them. Now, everyone wants to run or operate at a profit. So if they get the naira note at a cost, they will have to add their own margin. So I'm thinking that they got it at a 15% margin or markup. then they will have their own margins and it goes high and high like that. So I do not necessarily blame them. We are all victims of an epileptic system. That is it.
So it looks like this situation has created a kind of industry, naira market, as you may, as you call it, naira market, if you prefer to put it that way, just like you have forex market.
Frank, can I shock you, right?
Please go ahead.
That despite the non-availability of this cash, if you go to some elitist weddings, you will see this cash being sprayed. And I begin to imagine, so is the law favoring a particular category of people in the same economy? So that is just it. It is sad. But I hope that they release the cash very soon, because life needs to go on.
Yes, we do hope so. We do hope so too. So let's look at this particular story. Of course, it was our first story we should have looked at. But looking at the fuel scarcity and some marketers, especially the major oil marketers, including the government-owned, now, of course, it's now limited liability. Talking about NNPC Limited, threatening to sanction those filling stations or depots selling above 198 or 200 naira as approved by the federal government. And this appears to me like perhaps these people could not help it, but they have to sell at that amount. So the issue here is the disparity of prices between the oil major marketers and, of course, the independent marketers. It looks like two different worlds against each other. Can you hear me?
Not necessarily, Frank. I can hear you. Can you hear me as well?
Go ahead, please. Yes, please go ahead, Gamale. I can hear you.
Okay. When the federal government approves a pump price, which is one of the beauty of sector liberalization, every player has a free will to determine its own price. And perhaps that is one of the...
Oh dear, not again. We're back. So, well, we're running away from earlier, but we hope we can, get through this at the end of the day. Well, I think Gamalia was trying to talk to us about, maybe not against two different worlds against each other or trying to, fight each other.
Frank, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
So, when and if the federal government fixes a price, the beauty of an industry or a sector like this is that every player has the right to determine its price. If you have a shop on the mainland and I have a shop on the island, we cannot sell the same product at the same price. So the disparity in pump price at various extremes of the country is just due to several factors. So we cannot help it, and that is one of the pains of democratizing a sector. The best the federal government can do is to ease the value chain that is in between that causes additional cost on this product. But there's nothing anybody can do. There's nothing anybody can do. In some places, you sell fuel at 250, 300. In some places, you sell it at 180, 189, 200. So that is it. It's sad, but it's a reality we have to live with.
What you're saying really is the major independent oil major marketers shouldn't look at the independent marketers as the problem, but they should look at factors causing these differentials and address it, isn't it?
Okay, so we're trying to talk about the independent major marketers. Like I said, every business organization wants to run a profit. That profit, however, fast, subject to your business model, and several other good of service. So the disparity in the sale of pump price or petroleum products is a factor of what is unique to every player. And sadly, I don't think there's anything we can do about it. I'm sorry.
Okay. Let's move to the next one here. I'm sure you'll be interested in this one because this one has to do with talent development with regards to opening up the ICT sector. So the federal government actually was harping on how they can develop, talent, or by enhancing or empowering youth to be able to boost the country's economic growth. So, let's talk about this. The ICT sector made about 100 or paid just a tax, just in tax remittances. They made over. They paid over 138 billion naira in the third quarter of 2022 alone. So that's to tell you that the sector has a lot of potential for them to be able to remit that amount of tax in one quarter alone. That shows that there's a lot of potential in that. So let's look at the opportunity in the tech sector with regards to skill development, talent development, and of course, how can we go about this? Well, I think internet is not our friend today at all, given the disruption in the flow of our conversation today. So, but if you can hear me, talk to us, Gamaliel. If you can hear me, I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so it is heartwarming that ICT is contributing to the sector in terms of revenue, and it shows the potential that sector can give. Having said that, the government needs to go beyond rhetorics and do more. So we need to invest in infrastructure. We need to invest in ICT. I mean, how about we having an ICT center in all the 774 local governments across the country? In a society like ours, where people have lost interest and a lot of our youths have suddenly began the crusade of I want to japa. If we do this very well, we'll be able to harness the inherent benefit and roll out as many courses as possible that will complement the growing tech sector in Nigeria. So I think it's a good idea that the government is strategic and looking at ICT skills development. Well done to the federal government.
There are over 20,000 startups alone in tech in Nigeria, according to Statista. And so how much opportunity do you think this sector has to offer?
Frank, the opportunity is mind-blowing. I read an article this morning on McKinsey and Company talking about the total addressable market. Now, Nigeria has between 4 to 5 unicorns, and I think Lagos particularly. So if we are able to create the enabling environment, I'm sure we will have more. So we need to drive tech and make sure it delivers more, particularly because we live in an hybrid world. So I think that is good. The jobs will be there and people will be able to compete globally. So I think it's a good one. Yes.
Let's take look at the final business headline here. According to the report by the Central Bank of Nigeria, the total asset of the banking industry grew from about 14.36 trillion in December 2021 to 73 trillion naira as at December 2022. That is huge, from 14.3 trillion naira to 73 trillion naira as at December 2022. So talk to us. It looks like the biggest sector, you may say, is the banking sector or the financial sector so far.
Yes, arguably they are. But as a management consultant, I want to puncture that a little bit. How well are these assets being deployed to grow the informal sector? As at the last count, there are about 37 million MSMEs in Nigeria. I mean, how many of those MSMEs have been extended loans by these banks? So rather than just piling up assets, let us sweat this asset. There's something you call return on investment. What is the return on assets for these banks? I want to know. So beyond just piling up asset and asset, let us sweat this asset. Imagine you giving out 1 million naira to 37 million MSMEs to enhance working capital, to buy inventory, to invest in technology. Imagine the multiplier effect of the economy. So it's not enough to sweat assets or to pile up assets. Sweat those assets and let it grow, let it feed into the informal sector and run these assets. That is what I think. There's a good thing that our assets are growing. At least it puts confidence on our financial sector, or our banking sector rather. That is it.
Well, I know that credit to the private sector has risen to as high as in trillion, more than 20 or 30 trillion and also the it's a credit to private sector alone. So it means that the banks are doing, maybe trying their best in that effort. Perhaps we need to bring the federal government into the equation to look at maybe they need to set up a kind of policy that will also, encourage these commercial banks to start looking in the way of SME operators. So what's your position on this?
That is fantastic. That can fly by way of legislation, and I totally support it. We need to sweat our informal sector. That sector is largely underutilized, particularly because they contribute to about 60 to 70% of our existing workforce. So we need to do more for the informal sector so that our economy can be better for it. So I think that's a good idea. I know some banks are doing something around tailor-made products for MSMEs, but they need to do more. They really need to do more because the opportunities are there. Thank you.
I think a good place to leave it. Thank you so much for your time, Gamaliel Tanimomo, business analyst. Thank you for sharing your thought with us on Business Breakfast. I'm not sure if you can hear me again, but still to come after the break. Well, we'll turn our attention to the equities market to look at the market yesterday as there was 11 losers yesterday, and of course the market went down in total at the end of Wednesday. But back in a moment, please stay with us.